children. Today we will discuss chapter number 8. The name of the chapter is Body Movements. All the living organisms, they show movement. In fact, the movement is an indicative sign of whether to a particular organism, a living organism or a non-living one. The plants, they show movements, but they are fixed at a particular point. In these, the movement is in response to an external stimuli. Now the stimuli can be sunlight, it can be water, it can be touch, it can be heat, etc. For example, there is a plant named mimosa or touch me not plant. It is sensitive to touch. So as soon as we touch that plant, so the plant will close its leaves. In this way, we can see that the movement is being shown in response to the stimuli of touch. Similar is the case of sunflower. The sunflower bends itself towards the direction of sunlight. In that case, the sunlight acts as a stimuli. The movement in animals is quite visible, clearly visible. The movement of animal could be the movement of body parts or of entire body as a whole. Now, why does the animal move? They move from one place to another place in the search of food, shelter, suitable breeding grounds, and favorable climatic conditions, and so on. Now we will discuss about human body and its movement. Now we know that in our body we are able to move certain body parts very easily, but not every body part. Now how come we are able to move few body parts like our neck, like our hands, like our shoulder, and not every body part? This is because of the presence of joints. Now what are these joints? The joints are the places where one or two bones meet, or they are joined together. Now the body, you know that there is a skeletal system from our head till the tips of our toes. But the bones themselves, they are not flexible. They only move at the joints. So the movement is responsible because of the joints. The bones are attached to each other in joints with the help of some tissues which are known as ligaments. The function of ligaments is to provide mechanical support and also. Now there are different types of joints present in our body, from the head itself till the toes. Let's have a quick review of that. In our head, there is present skull, which is known as the fixed joint. Then in our neck, there is pivot joint. Then in our shoulder and hip, we have ball and socket joint. Then at our elbows and our knees, we have hinge joint. And in our wrist and ankles, we have gliding joints. Now we will discuss about these joints one by. So all these joints which we discussed, they are divided into three categories. One is immovable joints, slightly movable joints, and movable joints. Now immovable means the joints which are fixed. Slightly movable, which will show slight movement. Then movable, the pivot, ball and socket, hinge joint, they show movement. Firstly, we'll start with immovable joints. They do not allow the movement of bones. They are present here in the bones of skull, or the joint between the upper jaw and the head. Here we can see in this diagram the fixed joint of the skull. Then slightly movable joints, these are also known as gliding joints, and here only slight movement or the little movement of bones is seen. Example, in the joints of our backbone, in our wrist and ankles. Then comes movable joints. They allow the bones to move freely, and they are divided into three categories, or they are of three types mainly: pivot joint or pivotal joint, ball and socket joint, and hinge joint. Where our neck joins our head, it is known as the pivotal joint, and it allows us to bend our head forward and backward, and also to turn our head to right and to left. Here we can see the location of the pivot joint. Then comes the ball and socket joint. Now in this joint, what happens? The rounded head of one bone, it fits into the cup-like cavity of another bone. That is why the name ball and socket joint is being given to this joint. And this is the only joint which allows the movement in all directions. Now where is this joint present? This is present in our shoulder and hip. Now you can see at our shoulder and direction and our hip, we can move them in any direction because of the presence of ball and socket joint. Here you can see the rounded end of one bone, it fits into the hollow cavity structure of another bone. So that is why the name ball and socket has been given. Hinge joint. Now these joints, they allow only the back and forth movement and that too in one direction only. Like suppose when we open and close the door, we can do it in back and forth, not in any other direction. So these joints, they are given the hinge joint name because they work just like the hinges on the doors and the windows. And the location in our body, there are knee joint and elbow joint. These are the examples of hinge joint. Yani ki you can move them in only one direction, not more than. Here you can see the example or the diagrammatic representation of the hinge joint which is present in knee. Dislocation and fracture of bones. Now many of the times due to some accidents, the bone get broken or dislocated from their position. Now the difference between dislocation and fracture is that in the case of dislocation, the ligaments get torn and the bones get displaced from its position, and the particular area there is pain and swelling in that particular area. So it means the dislocation is there. But if a bone is broken, then we call it a fracture. Now how come we are able to see or check that in which bone there is a fracture? The doctors, they take the help of X-rays for the same. They locate the bone which has suffered the injury and advise the proper treatment for the same. Now the X-ray image of chest and hand. So you can see in the X-ray image only the bones are visible. Why? Because the X-rays, they pass through the tissues but not the bones. Yani they will penetrate through the tissues and it will give us or will provide us a picture of the bones only, and hence the treatment is possible because of this. That's all for the day, children. Thank you so much. Have a very good day ahead.